I'm willing to bet you didn't have to think about whether or not you like the people that are closest to you in your life. Your friends, your spouse, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, whatever, all those people, you likely felt it automatically. You likely felt, I really jive with this person, I vibe with this person, I get along with this person. But no one ever looks at why that happens. When you understand why that happens, you start to build an audience in the same exact way. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this episode. So if you want to learn how to build a deep connection with your audience and pull the right people in every single time, well, keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, talking all about how to master your audience. So this will be a messaging related podcast, but we're specifically going to be talking about your audience. One of the biggest problems that I see over and over again is people can't attract an audience, number one, or number two, they attract an audience and it's not the right people. And if you're the type of person who's feeling like you can't attract the right people, well, this episode is going to be super valuable for you. The other problem that people have is that they can attract the right audience, people seem to pay attention, but people aren't buying from them. Another problem might be that you feel inauthentic in your message. So you know something is off inside your message and you don't really know why. We're going to talk about why that might be. We're going to talk about how to attract the right people, how to attract the right message, and how to blend those two together. But I wanted to start off by reading you a couple pain points that people struggle with when they don't have their audience figured out. Now, the reason why I want to do this is because you might be listening here and going, oh, Brandon, I have a clear idea of who I am, who my audience is. I don't have a problem attracting the right people, but it's more than that. So here's a couple problems. Here's very specific pains and problems you might be experiencing right now that are actually a result of you having issues with your audience. Okay, so number one, you don't connect with your audience even though you're good at what you do. So you may be really good at what you do, you might be an expert, you might be the best at what you do, but you don't seem to connect with anybody who's coming in, or they're not paying attention to you. You don't actually connect with your avatar. So you have this person that you wrote down on a piece of paper, you came up with their pain points, you came up with their problems, you understand who they are, but you as a person, you just don't connect with them. That's a big problem, and that is a problem that people run into from time to time. Next one, you have an avatar, but no matter how much you try to get in their head, you never seem to connect or resonate with them. We're going to talk about why this is. We're going to talk about how to fix this problem. We also have some boot camps coming up and some trainings coming up in the near future. We'll give you more information at the end of this podcast about those. That'll go into even more detail around that. But the problem is that when people generally come up with who their audience is going to be, who their avatar is, they stay very surface level with it. And when you stay very surface level, it means you can't connect on a deeper level with those audience members. And we're going to talk about how you can actually fix that today. The next problem you might be facing is you don't know how to speak to your avatar in a way that gets them to instantly like and trust you. Remember, there's two things that need to happen. People need to trust that you can fix the problem. And number two, they need to trust you. They need to like you. They need to connect with you. You need both. Next one is you may not feel good when talking to your audience, but you're not sure why it feels so inauthentic. We'll cover that today. When creating content, you don't focus on real connection based on values, beliefs, or identity. You're actually just talking to who you think and saying things that you think they want to hear. You're making up this illusion of a person in your head and you're trying to speak to this fake person. That's a big problem. You're putting out content that you know is good and can be helpful, but it seems to get ignored by everyone. Again, this is a result of you not mastering your audience, not understanding who they are, what the specific problems are, their specific actions, their specific mistakes, specific feelings, thoughts, identities, and beliefs. You probably are experiencing this problem as well. You never get people repeating your messaging back to you. When your messaging's dialed in, when you master your audience, people connect with you, they resonate with you, you're shifting their perspective, and what starts to happen is they repeat your messaging back to you, saying things like, I am the, I want to fix this. I want that. That thing that you talked about, that's who I want to become. Also, everyone pays attention to your competitors, even though you're different, better, or you have the same stuff as them. So if you're the type of person who's looking around going like, how is this person getting an audience? They teach the same thing that I teach. Well, it's because you haven't mastered your audience. You may have mastered the skill of what you do. You may have mastered the expertise, but you haven't mastered the audience. There's two things. Again, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to be different, but you also have to connect with them. So you're not learning how to connect with them, how to pull them in. You're not learning how to speak to their subconscious mind. Well, then it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how many tutorials you put out, how masterful you are in your craft. You're never going to build that business. And the last one is that you may feel like you understand what to do and what you do, but it doesn't seem to work. It seems like you're missing something invisible. Like you've listened to all the tutorials, you listen to all the gurus, you actually know what you should be doing. You know you should be putting out content. You know you should be adding value. You know you should be offering webinars. You know you should be doing all these things. You know everything that you should be doing, and you are doing the things you should be doing, but there's something missing. You haven't gone on those deep levels yet. Now there's 5 things that we're going to cover today. But before we do it, I'm going to talk about some of the mistakes that might be causing those problems. And we're going to dive into the 5 different areas that you need to focus on in order to master your audience. So number 1 mistake is that you focused only on having one avatar. You need 2 of them. The big reason why is we want to create demand. We want to be able to for your audience to identify, I'm over here and I'm here right now, but I want to be over here. When we have one avatar, we can't create a demand gap. So that's one of the mistakes you might be focusing on is you just have one avatar. Number 2, you made up the avatar. They're a fake person. They're not real. How on earth are you supposed to get into people's feelings and thoughts and actions if they're a fake person? You can't. It's literally impossible. So when you make up a fake person, you actually stay very surface level. And when you're very surface level, you can't build a connection with your audience. The next one, you're an expert trying to be an expert in a sea of experts instead of creating your own space. Look at what we've done with messaging. I don't look at myself as a messaging expert. I look at myself as someone who's creating an entirely new niche or arena. Yes, it is messaging, but it's more than messaging. It goes beneath the surface. And because of that, I'm able to attract people that are interested in those things. For example, there is a lot of, for lack of a better word, personal development incorporated into our work. Why is that? It's not because I want to be a personal development coach. It's because I want to take people to the depths they haven't gone to before in order to pull out really powerful messaging. And so I need both, but there aren't a lot of people teaching both. Most people teaching strategy. And so I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to just give people frameworks and strategy. I want to create my own space, my own niche. And when I'm able to do that, I'm able to pull in a deeper audience, a better audience. Next mistake is that your focus is more on content, posting, publishing, and creating, trying to add value, and you never focus on messaging. So you're more focused on like, here's the posting strategy, here's the platform I'm using, here's the content that I'm creating. And there's been a lack of focus on messaging. What are you saying? Because what you say is what's going to build connection. What you say is going to build or attract the audience. What you say is going to hit people on a subconscious level or not, depending on what you're saying. And then you may be surveying your audience and letting them control your message, okay? So if you're the type of person who's like, I just want to add value and I want to give everything away for free and I want to survey my audience and just show up and add value into their life, that's great. That can work. The problem with all of that is that you then let your audience control your message. When we look at the people that have the biggest audience, the best audience, the people with the most connection with their audience, is they don't let the external world control them. They're very clear on who they are. They're very clear on what they do. They're very clear on the specific person that they serve. They're very clear on what their message is. And when you're more clear and you have more personal power, you start to attract more people. When we look at, again, I always use the same examples, but we look at people like Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, Mel Robbins, Simon Sinek, all those people, they're not bending or tweaking or maneuvering their message and their content based on what other people tell them, what survey results say. It is smart to pay attention to data to let you know how things are resonating, but they're not bending. And because they're not bending, they're very clear on a lot. And they realize they are the light that's going to attract the audience. Who they are, what their message is, and what they do attracts the people. You don't bend to what everyone else says in an attempt to attract them. And that's the biggest problem. One of the reasons why people can never master their audience is because they don't actually know who they are, meaning the expert or the authority or the thought leader. They don't know who they are themselves. They don't actually know what it is they do and how they do it or how they're different. And then number 3 is they don't actually know who they want to attract specifically. You may say like, oh, I want to attract business owners or I want to attract moms. Okay, great. You and 50,000 other experts online want to attract moms. What kind of mom? What problem? What specific problem? Oh, they're overwhelmed? No, go deeper. They're overwhelmed with what? Tell me what overwhelmed is without telling me that they're overwhelmed. How do you say overwhelmed without saying overwhelmed? That's how we start to get specific. So again, you have to focus on who you are as a person and as an expert and as a thought leader, what it is you do and what your message is and how you want to do it. And then you have to get clear on who you want to attract, who do you want to work with. And it's very easy because the more clear you are on you, the more clear you are on who you are, that's going to tend to be who you start to attract. For me, for example, I'm getting more and more clear, and I'm pretty dang clear on who I am and how I want to show up. And I'm very clear on my beliefs, and I'm very clear on my identities, and I'm very clear on who I want to work with. And that's usually going to be people that have the same beliefs and identities and values as me. So I incorporate those things into my message. And then the people that resonate with that message are going to be the people that have the same beliefs and values and identities. I start to master my audience because I mastered who I am. And that's the very first step, is you have to master who you are. Understand who you are. Remember who you are. You don't bend to the external world. Remember, there's 2 things when it comes to messaging. Number 1, we have to know what we want to say. Number 2, we have to learn how to say it. The problem is and those 2 are completely separate things. We do want to listen to data and we do want to listen to the audience when it comes to how we want to say something or how we should be saying something. But most people let the external world and survey results and audience influence what they're saying. We don't want to do that. We want to understand who we are. We want to understand what we want to say. But again, there's 10,000 ways to say something. So when we look at data and when we look at how people are responding and we adjust, it is only when we understand what we want to say, we're just adjusting how we want to say it. Okay? So there's 5 things that I want to talk about when we talk about mastering your audience. Now, again, we're going to do a boot camp. It's completely free. It's live. It's interactive. And it's pitch free, meaning I'm not selling you anything. So you can come to this boot camp, put your guards down, and just learn, ask questions, all that good stuff. We'll give you more data or information on when that is and how you can register at the end of this podcast. So make sure you stay tuned to the end. And if you're listening to this podcast afterwards, don't worry, we have more training coming. And we also have replays and stuff that you can watch, okay? So number 1, the very first thing when it comes to mastering your audience is when we talk to avatars or talk about avatars, we want 2 of them. Sometimes even more than that, but just to start, let's start with 2. Here's the reason why. When most people talk about avatars, they talk about avatars in the context of, I'm just going to do this so I understand who I'm talking to, so I can write copy to that person and whatever. The problem with that is that when you only have one, if you're lucky enough to be able to connect with that person, most people can't, and we'll talk about that later too. Most people can't, but if you're lucky enough to connect with that person, that's all you're doing is connecting with that person. And that's great. That's one part of the equation, but we also want to create demand. So if we have 2 avatars, we have one avatar of who you're talking to and where they're at. We have another avatar of where they want to be and who they want to become, and you incorporate both into your messaging ecosystem. What starts to happen is people consume more of your content. They realize, okay, I'm this person over here, and I want to become this person over here. what starts to happen is you create a subconscious or internal emotion of demand. I want this. And when we create that demand gap, we now can position ourselves, our method, our solution, our program, our service, whatever it is, as the thing that bridges that gap. But the idea here is that we want a starting point. We want them to recognize they're at the starting point, and we want them to desire something on the other side, okay? In the bootcamp, we'll talk way more about this and show you how to start figuring a lot of this stuff out. The next piece of this is integrating certain aspects of you, okay? So step one was 2 avatars and not 1. The next one is integrating more of you. There's a couple of ways we like to do this. Number 1, or the first part of this, integrating more aspects of you, is getting very clear on your core values, your beliefs, your message, your identities. And you want to just write them all down. Okay, now obviously inside of our program, which is coming out later this year in March, we have exercises to pull out every single little detail of all of this. I'm actually really excited about it. It's called the New Generation Mastery program. So that's be coming out in March. But for right now, just write down best of your ability, your identities, values, and beliefs. Those are the 3 things you need to write down right now. Now what you're going to do, and by the way, the more clear you get on who you are, the deeper those things will be. But then I want you to look at what areas or which ones did you write down that you want to incorporate into business. Basically what I'm saying is look at all your values and beliefs, and if you were to pick your customers to have the same values and beliefs, which ones would you pick? So for me, I work with entrepreneurs and change makers and things like that. So obviously one of the identities that I want to attract that I also have are entrepreneurs. Another one of my identities that I release in my content is being a parent and a husband. I don't want to attract just parents and husbands, so I don't really lean into that much. But I also want to attract people have good hearts and change makers and that want to make an impact. So I incorporate those identities into my titles of my content. That's what I speak about when I write copy. I'm using those identities. Now, the reason why that's important is because when you put identities out there, you put values out there, you put beliefs out there, what happens on a subconscious level is that people read it, they consume it, and they either like it or they don't. They either resonate with it or don't. By the way, this happens automatically. This is done subconsciously. They're not thinking about it. They're not using logic. They see a title, their brain automatically goes, I like it, I don't like it, let me read on, let me not read on. The subconscious makes a decision for them. So when we talk to the subconscious using identities, using beliefs, using core values, well, we start to attract those people automatically into our audience. And I promise you that if you have not had the right people in your audience, I'm promising you haven't properly incorporated values, beliefs, and identities. Now, the second side of an equation is we want to incorporate more of you. I don't want you to make up a fake avatar. I don't want you to create this illusion of a person. I don't want you to write down on a piece of paper and come up with this name of like, oh, this is Jane, and she's a mom, and she's a working mom, and she has 3 kids, and she drives a minivan, and she does the blah, blah. Don't make this stuff up. You most likely have gone through a transformation yourself, which is what you're helping other people do. You yourself are the old avatar. What were your thoughts? What were your feelings? What were your actions? What were your mistakes? Talk about those. And that way you're able to get specific. When you get specific, you again speak to your audience's subconscious. They automatically resonate. They automatically pay attention. For example, if I said to you right now that if you're listening to this podcast and you're sitting down and you're wearing pants and you have a short sleeve shirt on, then this podcast is going to be a waste of time to you. What's going to happen subconsciously as soon as I said you're sitting down, you're wearing pants, and you have a short sleeve shirt on? If that was you, what happens is your brain automatically perks up and goes, he's talking about you, pay more attention. You didn't have to think about it. Your brain automatically did that. Why? Because I got very specific. Now, obviously that's not true, so don't believe anything I just said about this podcast not being of value to you or wasting your time or whatever. But the point is when I get very specific, you can see the brain and the subconscious goes on automatic alert. And that's incredibly important because when you want to speak to your avatar, you want to speak about what are the real actual actions they're doing. Describe it in so much detail that someone could literally paint a picture of it. Tell it as if they're watching a movie, but they're not actually watching the movie. That's to the level of what you want your communication to be, because when you do, you go to a whole nother depth. You go on a deeper level. You hit that subconscious level. People pay attention automatically. And that's what we've gotten really good at over the years. Okay. So let's recap where we're at so far. Out of the 5 focuses, we have covered avatars. You need 2, not 1. You also want to make sure the old avatar or the avatar is an older version of you if it applies. If it doesn't, then you want to speak to your best customer and get their actual thoughts and feelings and emotions. Number 2 is you want to incorporate more aspects of you. The more of you that you put into your content, your titles, your messaging, the more you start to attract people that are most like you. You start to attract the people that you actually want, the people you actually connect with. And it's a real authentic connection because it's you. The next one is pay attention to your titles and to your copy. If you want to attract the right people, then be intentional with who you're attracting through your titles of your content. Remember, your titles of your content will be the very first thing that people see. If you run a throughplay campaign, or you put out a piece of content or a podcast or a video and there's a title on it, maybe there's a bar on the video, or it's an image with a quote, or it's an image with a statement on it, and you put it out to the world and you run traffic to it or people see it, that thing that they're consuming will run through their brain and they will subconsciously decide if they like it or they don't. And generally, if you're incorporating beliefs and identities and values that those people have, their brain and subconscious will say, yes, we like this. That's how it works. People don't make logical decisions on content. When you consume content, you either like it or you don't automatically. You usually don't make a logical decision first and then come up with your decision. We make a decision first subconsciously, and then sometimes, not even most of the time, but sometimes we will create a logical reason as to why. For example, when you watch a movie, you will subconsciously decide whether you like it or you don't. And in most cases, if you don't like it, you then go to logic when you're talking to someone else of here's the reasons why I don't like it. But initially the feeling came up automatically, you subconsciously consumed it. And that's the same thing with your content. Pay attention to the titles, be intentional with them, put the right things in those titles. Again, we'll talk more about this in the bootcamp and inside our program that's coming out in March. We'll show you exactly how to do this. The 4th thing, and I apologize, there's actually 6. I know I said 5, but there's 6. The 4th thing is mastering what you want to talk about. Sometimes this isn't as easy as it seems because we've been stuck in what we've always been doing. We've been stuck in what we have an expertise in. We get stuck in what we have a college degree in. We get stuck in this is what's making me money, but we don't always question, what do I really want to be doing? Where's my passion really lie? Where is my purpose? And by the way, newsflash, all of that stuff evolves over time. What you start with won't be what you end with, but you do have to get started in order to get there. But you also have to pay attention to when things need to evolve, okay? So mastering what you want to talk about means not always listening to your audience, not always listening to the experts, not always listening to your mentors, starting to question more things and more people and more advice, and leaning into what you really want to talk about. And here's the reason why. If you start to bend and change and alter what you talk about because of the external world, because of what other people are saying, your message becomes inauthentic and people can feel that. Energetically, things will be off. And this is something I've had to learn myself. I've had to go through a journey over the last 3 years of really uncovering what it is that I want to say, what I want to talk about, without worrying about haters or the external world or what my audience really wants. To be honest with you, I don't really care what my audience really wants, because the audience I have now is based off of what I've been saying in the past, and of what I've been saying off the past isn't what I want to talk about anymore. Well, some of that audience is going to have to probably go away. Now, obviously, I love all of you, and I'm so grateful for all the listeners. I'm not saying I don't want an audience or don't care about them. What I'm saying is my message is what brings in the audience. And I want my message to be as authentic as possible, because that way I can build a more authentic connection with my audience. I'm connecting off of something real and something off to the core of who I am, I'm not pretending to be something based off of what other people tell me they want. And there's a lot of us in the space that are doing that. And yes, we can even see success sometimes doing that. There are people that see success doing that. But if you're someone that has an impactful message, an impactful service, an impactful program, you're here to make some kind of change or difference in people's lives, and it's not up to them to tell you what difference you're going to make in their lives. So what I always tell people is, yes, listen to them, survey them. Don't just shut it all off. Listen, pay attention. And if they say something that fits underneath what you want to talk about, then go ahead and do it. But you have to be very clear on who you are and what you do first. All right. Number 5. You have to understand where that audience is at and speak specifics to them. So a lot of the problems that people have is they go through what I just told them, like, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to understand what it is I want to do. I'm not going to listen to the external world. And then they just speak on these deep, deep topics. But the problem is that even though that's what you want to talk about, the audience, the people that you can help, aren't quite there yet. And so you need to kind of, again, adjust how you talk to them. Understand what you want to talk about, but adjust how you talk to them so that you're relevant. Here's an example. Let's say you're a weight loss coach and you know that people struggle with weight loss because of, let's just call it past trauma, right? They've had some kind of past trauma in their life that's affecting them on a subconscious level that they have to heal. And that's kind of the core, big, huge thing. Well, if someone wants to lose weight and you want to work with people that are just starting their weight loss journey, you can't go to someone who's just starting their weight loss journey and say, cool, you want to lose weight? Let me show you how to heal your past trauma. They're gonna be like, well, what the hell are you talking about? I just want a diet plan and a workout plan. That's it. That's all I want. Because that's what they think they need. So what you need to do is adjust your communication style to meet them where they're at. Maybe put out content that is something along the lines of how to lose your first 10 pounds without needing a workout plan. Well, now you have their curiosity. Now they're interested. And now you can get a little bit deeper into this. You can maybe say, look, a lot of the biggest things, I can give you all the workout plans and I can give you all the diet plans. But the problem is if you're not committed, we don't change your habits first, none of those things are relevant. So I'm going to show you the first step to losing weight. And this is about developing habits. And maybe don't get all the way down to trauma, but now we're at least one step further, right? We're one step closer to talking about the trauma, but we're talking about habits. And they go, great, cool, I have some ways on changing habits. And then as they get deeper into your program, as they get deeper down the journey with you, you can start to reveal more things. But we don't want to lead with that. You have to meet your audience where they're at. And one of the best ways to do that is to speak specifics. So again, one of the ways to speak specifics is through pain points. Another one is through actions. Another one is through mistakes. When you start saying things like, I know you're on your weight loss journey, and I know you're the type of person who's probably Googled how to lose weight and found 50 different workout plans, then you're not really sure what to follow. You're probably also someone who's tried to lose weight at least 3 times in your past and have failed within 3 months. I know that because that's the exact person I help. Those are all specifics, right? Googled, found 50 things. You've tried to lose weight at least 3 times in the past and you failed within 3 months. Those are all very specific pain points or actions or mistakes that people have experienced. And when I say that, the subconscious mind goes, oh my God, they're talking about you. This person gets you. This person understands you. You start to master your audience. You start to master where they're at. So meet them where they're at and speak specifics. Again, we'll talk more about this in the boot camp, and we definitely give you frameworks and all that stuff inside our program that's coming out in March. All right, the last and final thing is you have to also communicate and speak to gain trust. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this. There's 2 things that need to happen. Number 1, they need to know that you can actually solve their problem. And number 2, they need to trust and like you as an individual. Again, this is why we want our identities, we want our beliefs, we want our core values coming through in our content and communication, because those things subconsciously get people to go like, I like that person. When we look at your best friend or spouse or someone that you really like hanging out with, there is a blend of values, beliefs, and identities there. You either have the same identities, the same beliefs, or the same core values, and the deeper those things are to you, the deeper the relationship is going to be with that person. So if you have a best friend and you guys both share the number 1 and number 2 identity that in your lives, the number 1 and 2 core value, the number 1 and 2 belief on certain things in life, the stronger that relationship is going to be. And as you grow and change, and you start to change your beliefs and you change your identities and change your values and things like that, what starts to happen is friendships come and they go. Most people think it's like, oh, I've outgrown that person. It's like, no, you haven't outgrown that person. You just changed an identity. You've changed the belief. You changed the value. So what starts to happen is something that was important to you in those 3 areas is no longer important to you or relevant to you, but it still is to your friend. That's why shedding will happen. That's why in relationships you either grow together or you grow apart. So it's the same thing with your audience. You need to be able to get them to like you, and in order to get a subconscious like or an automated I like this person is by focusing on those things. Now on the same side of this, you also need to let them know you can solve their problem. Again, talking specifics allows for them to subconsciously understand this person can help. When I describe your problem and I describe the mistakes you're making, you know what happens, and I'm very specific on those 2 things, your subconscious tells you that person can solve my problem. I didn't even tell you how to fix a problem. I just said, look, I know you're experiencing this and this is probably coming up because of this. You guys notice how I started this podcast episode? I started the entire episode with here's some very specific problems and here's some very specific mistakes that you're making. If you were someone who made those problems and experienced those problems and made those mistakes, your subconscious probably told you pay attention to what he's saying because he has the solution. Even though I didn't reveal anything to you, your subconscious automatically started firing, going, this person has the solution here. Because the only way to understand the specifics is to have gone through it myself and to come out the other side. So those are the things that you have to focus on when you want to master your audience. Now, obviously, we're only here for 20, 30 minutes or 40 minutes, however long this episode was. I want to go deeper. I want to help you start to put this stuff together. Now, obviously, mastering your audience is only one element of actually mastering your messaging, but it's one of the very first steps. And so what I want to do is invite you to that boot camp. Hopefully, you're watching this before we do the boot camp live, but again, it's free. There's absolutely no pitch. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just teaching you and helping you master your audience. And then we have a couple more boot camps after that as well. So we're going to play the information here in a second. If you have not, or you're watching this podcast episode after, we can get you the recording. Don't worry about that. And we have a ton more trainings coming up to help you master your messaging. So I'll see you guys on the next episode, and pay attention for that information right now. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.